Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Sally Nugent and Ben Thompson.
And we bring you some breaking news. Our first headline this morning: the Vatican has just announced the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. That news just coming to us in the last few moments. You will know, of course, he was seen yesterday given the Easter blessing, but we've had it confirmed by the Vatican just a moment ago that Pope Francis has died.
We'll bring you all the very latest reaction to that breaking story this morning for you here on Breakfast and across BBC News. But our other main stories for you today. Prison officers call on the government to issue tasers to staff working in the country's most dangerous jails ahead of a meeting with the Justice Secretary this week.
The brief Easter ceasefire declared by President Putin in Ukraine has ended, with both sides accusing each other of numerous violations.
Buying illicit weight loss drugs online means dicing with death. That's the warning from a leading GP after a BBC investigation finds illegal jabs are being sold on social media.
The charity warns of the dangers of buying DIY bike conversion kits online after a spate of e-bike fires.
Good morning. It's a cloudy, murky, damp start to the day. We've got rain moving from the west towards the northeast. It will brighten up behind it, but there'll be further showers. I'll have all the details later.
It is 9:05. Just that news we brought to you a moment ago, the news announced by the Vatican of the death of Pope Francis, who died at 7:35 this morning. The Vatican has said the following words: Pope Francis died on Easter Monday, April the 21st, 2025. at his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Maria. Those words just brought to us just in the last few moments. And here we can take you now to Vatican City Live. The scene here is just coming up to 9:06 on Easter Monday morning.
Yeah, the timing of this announcement particularly poignant, of course, but I want to bring you a statement that's just been issued by the Vatican. Announcing the death of Pope Francis. They say, "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis." They say at 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life, they say, was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and most marginalised. They say, with immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of the one and true God. So that statement coming to us just a short while ago from the Vatican.
And you will be aware, of course, that he has been in hospital very recently for an extended amount of time. All his engagements were cancelled. He's had, in fact, long-term health issues. He's had a number of health issues throughout his life, having had part of one of his lungs removed at the age of 21. We know he was very seriously ill in hospital in recent weeks, but had been seen in public. Indeed, met the King and Queen in just a few days ago. So this news coming to us this morning of the death of Pope Francis. He died, according to the Vatican, at 7:35 this morning, Easter Monday.
So as we said, that news, the sad news this Easter Monday, announcing the death of the Pope at the age of 88. Born in 1936, he had a number of jobs before studying for the priesthood. He trained as a chemist. He even worked as a bouncer before studying for the priesthood, but then appointed Bishop of Buenos Aires in 1998, became a cardinal in 2001, and then when elected Pope, he chose Francis as his papal name in honour of St. Francis of Assisi.
So just to remind you of the words, the official words coming from the Vatican, just a few minutes ago, in fact, His Eminence Cardinal Farrell announced this. "I announce with some sorrow the death of Pope Francis. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and the most marginalised.
As we said, seen just yesterday appearing at St Peter's Square to wish Happy Easter, the most important events in the Catholic calendar, the Christian calendar. Pope Francis appearing at St Peter's Square to wish Happy Easter to those thousands of worshippers who'd gathered there. He was in a wheelchair after those health concerns he's had in recent weeks, but waving from the balcony to crowds, saying, "Dear brothers and sisters, Happy Easter." But the traditional Easter dress, you'll know, was delivered not by the Pope himself, but a member of the clergy. He was then driven around the square and through the crowds, his procession pausing a number of times as he blessed babies on that appearance. Now, it was highly anticipated. The crowds had gathered to see him there on the balcony at the Vatican after those health concerns had meant he was out of the public eye for a number of weeks. His health had been the subject of a lot of concern, a lot of speculation. He was discharged, though, from hospital after 5 weeks of treatment. It was an infection that at one point led to double pneumonia, but he appeared at the time to have made a remarkable recovery from that illness. And as we said yesterday, able to appear for those crowds who'd gathered there in Rome at the Vatican.
Much more coverage of this here with us this morning. But let's just take a moment now to get this report from our religion editor, Aline Makbul, who has been looking back at the life of this Pope.
His surprise election in 2013 would mark a more radical break with the past than many expected. Jorge Bergoglio did have Italian roots, but was born in Argentina. While studying for priesthood, he worked briefly as a nightclub bouncer. While many fellow Jesuits were jailed and tortured during Argentina's military dictatorship, he rose to become Archbishop of Buenos Aires, some accusing him of forging too close a relationship with the regime. As Pope, he'd take the name of a saint who championed the cause of the poor. Francis signalled that his pontificate would be rooted not in Rome, but in the lives of believers around the world, and especially those on the economic margins. From the beginning, his style was informal. His first act as Pope was to pay his own hotel bill. In his early gestures, like washing the feet of the elderly and prisoners, he showed desire for his priests to be closer to the disadvantaged. He spoke out for the protection of migrants and refugees, laying a wreath on the waters where so many died on their perilous journeys. He travelled widely, drawing energy from the crowds here in Brazil. 3 million gathered on Copacabana Beach. And in the Philippines, he broke records for the world's largest mass, as 6 million turned out to join him. He linked economic inequality to the environment. In a papal encyclical, he said climate change amounted to rich countries inflicting damage on poor ones.
The Pope of the Holy See.
He became the first pope to address the US Congress.
I am most grateful for your invitation.
Telling the world's richest nation to take care of Mother Earth.
God bless America.
His pontificate continued to be haunted by the scandal of sexual abuse of children by priests.
Dios,
God weeps
for
the sexual abuse of children.
On a visit to Ireland, the first by a pope in almost 40 years, he apologised to victims at almost every event, but scandals continued to emerge. His papacy marked something of a change of tone on the subject of homosexuality, early on remarking, "Who am I to judge?" when talking about a gay bishop. But some progressives argue that in practical terms, the Vatican's stance and the Church's teachings have changed little. Even so, conservative Catholics viewed him with suspicion. But in some ways, he was as traditional as Pope John Paul II, whom he made a saint. And he had very conservative views on abortion, contraception, surrogacy and gender reassignment. His style of papacy, though, couldn't have been more different to his immediate predecessor, Benedict XVI, whose funeral he presided over. Through the scores of cardinals from the developing world he appointed, he changed the complexion of the church hierarchy, consolidating a shift in the centre of gravity of Catholicism away from Europe, where it was in decline, towards Latin America, Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. He was, above all, a pastoral pope, a man of humility who preferred the fellowship of ordinary believers to the trappings of ecclesiastical status and power.
As you can see there on your screen, the information that we're just bringing you in the last few minutes here on BBC Breakfast, that Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. We've had it confirmed by the Vatican that he died at 7:35 this morning at his residence in Rome.
So this is the live shot of St. Peter's Square in Rome right now, as word will slowly reach people who are there. And remember, it's just yesterday that we saw the Pope speak to thousands of people who'd gathered there in St. Peter's Square to address them for Easter Sunday, the most important occasion in the Christian calendar. Meeting there, despite his health concerns, you know, he had been hospitalised, 5 weeks of treatments in Rome to deal with an infection that at one point turned into double pneumonia. But he seemed to make a recovery of sorts. He was able to address the crowds there to wish them happy Easter. But the actual Easter service was given by a member of the clergy. But Pope Francis, you may know, has been head of the Catholic Church since March of 2013. And that was after the resignation of his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI. So in that top job leading the Catholic Church since March of 2013, and despite those health problems of late, was determined to wish people a happy Easter yesterday in the square there, making that appearance in a wheelchair, but able to make an appearance for such a significant day.
You saw a level of his determination in recent weeks. When released from hospital, he continued to work as much as possible. Not that long ago, he met the King and Queen at the Vatican. He went for an audience with him. Yesterday, in fact, he met the US Vice President, J.D. Vance. So very much determined to continue to work despite his failing health and increasing frailty.
I just want to bring you the statement that has been issued by the Vatican this morning. This coming to us from Cardinal Farrell, announcing the death of the Pope this morning. And let me read that to you, because it's worth hearing this morning on such a sad occasion for so many in the Church. And the statement reads, "Dearest brothers and sisters, it is with deep sorrow that I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis." He says at 7:35 this morning, that's today, on Easter Monday, he says the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. They say his entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage and universal love. He says, especially in favour of the poorest and most marginalised. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of the one and true God. That statement from the Vatican this morning from His Eminence Cardinal Farrell, announcing the death of the Pope at the age of 88.
If you are just tuning in to us here on BBC One, you're watching BBC Breakfast with the news that's just been announced in the last few minutes of the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. The news confirmed by the Vatican with that statement.
These images you'll be familiar with. These were the images of the Pope in the last week, appearing yesterday, of course, to meet the crowds in St. Peter's Square. But we know he was able to address the crowds for that all-important Easter Sunday service. That's despite his recent health problems. So these, we believe, are the pictures indeed from yesterday when, at the age of 88, he came out in that wheelchair, was able to wave from the balcony at St Peter's Basilica to those crowds below. And he was able then to say, "Dear brothers and sisters, happy Easter." But it was the rest of the service that was given by a member of the clergy after his recent health issues.
So this news just coming to you, significant moment for Catholics around the world. We're bringing to you this morning on Easter Monday morning, announcing the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. We're joined now by our correspondent, Sam Harrison, from our London newsroom. And Sam, this news just coming to us in the last few minutes. Indeed, we know from the Vatican, don't we, that the Pope died just after 7:30 this morning.
Good morning. Yes, significant news this coming out of the Vatican, the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. We've known for some time that he has been unwell. He's been in hospital, well publicised, of course, around the world. We've seen pictures over the last few weeks of lots of his supporters waiting outside hospital for news, and we thought that he had turned a corner. Yesterday, we have seen pictures of the Pope addressing thousands of people from the balcony at the Vatican out onto St. Peter's Square. He was a hugely popular figure, the first Pope from Latin America, the first Pope from outside Europe for over 1,000 years. Pope Benedict was someone who was well regarded by world leaders across the world, and for many as well seen as someone who modernised the Catholic Church. His death is a significant moment, and he will be mourned by millions of Catholic people around the world. Now, just to recap on the statement that we've had from the Vatican this morning, we've heard in the last few moments, it says, "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and most marginalised." This is the news that Pope Francis has died at the age of 88, the first Latin American Pope and the first Pope from outside of Europe for over 1,000 years.
Yeah, and so many tributes being paid already. We've heard from the Swiss president saying Pope Francis was a great spiritual leader. The Israeli president saying Pope Francis was a man of deep faith, peace and compassion. We're just showing you the live shot there from St. Peter's Square in Rome. Right now, of course, the timing of this particularly poignant, of course, coming on Easter Monday, news that the Pope has died at the age of 88. And Sam, right now, a lot in the Church, in the Catholic Church, will be looking to Rome for some sort of direction, because that statement that we had from them this morning talking about his example as a true disciple of Lord Jesus, they say, living to the values of fidelity, courage, universal love, and especially his work with the poorest and most marginalised. And that will be his legacy, won't it?
It's a massively significant moment, this. He was a Pope who cherished his role of reaching out to the poorest in society, a Pope who many will regard as a moderniser of the Catholic Church. And there will now be a period of intense mourning around the Vatican City and indeed around the world. We saw just yesterday pictures of the Pope addressing thousands of people off the balcony at the Vatican. He was a hugely popular, unifying leader. We've already heard, as you mentioned there, lots of leaders from around the world praising Pope Francis for the work that he has done. So lots of people will be waking up to the news shocked today. We know that he hasn't been too well recently. He's been dealing with bouts of pneumonia in hospital, but we did hope that he had turned a corner. As far as the next stages, there will be an intense period of mourning over the coming days. This is, of course, massively significant, happening on an Easter Monday as well. But the succession period for the next Pope will take a large amount of time. There will be a lot of thoughts in the Vatican as to the type of character who can take on such an important role. Will it go back to an Italian, a European Pope, as so often has been the case over the last few decades, or will they go with a candidate from elsewhere in the world? Pope Francis, hugely significant, being from Argentina. Argentina, a largely Catholic country. He has been seen as a unifying figure across South America. So his death marks a significant moment. Millions of people around the world will be mourning, and there will be a significant mourning process continuing over the next few days.
Sam, do stay with us. Stay right there for us. I just want to remind everybody at home who might just be switching their televisions on of the news that we broke to you a short time ago, announcing the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. And this is what the Vatican has said. They said, "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and the most marginalised."
Now, the death comes just less than a day after making that appearance at the Vatican in St. Peter's Square, for that important Easter Sunday address. His address and blessing was read by an aide, but he was there in person watching, and then was able to meet some of the well-wishers who'd gathered in the square around him. It's worth saying Pope Francis really setting some records too. He was the first non-European pope in centuries, and his papacy really marking many firsts. He introduced a lot of reforms to the Catholic Church, yet managed to also remain popular with a lot of traditionalists. He was the first pope from the Americas, or indeed the Southern Hemisphere as well. And that's not since the year 741 had there been a non-European Bishop of Rome. So setting so many records. And as we said, touching on that statement from the Vatican about the work with the poorest and most marginalised in society. And he was very keen that that would be his legacy.
Let's go back to Sam in our London newsroom now. And Sam, tributes being paid, just starting to come in from around the world. And Sam, this will just be the start of now a period of mourning.
And I think important to reflect on that further. We have heard already over the last few minutes how important, how much of a leading figure Pope Francis was when it came to leading people from areas of society which are struggling. He dedicated a lot of his work to helping the impoverished, helping the poor all over the world. And I think also a good indicator of this is looking at the plans that will now be in place for a funeral. A papal ceremony, a papal funeral ceremony is often an elaborate affair. Lots of money is poured into it, and an occasion like this, there's lots of grandeur associated with a pope's funeral. But Pope Francis has made it clear that he does not want this. He wants a simple coffin, for example, not one which is overly elaborate. He wants his body not to be placed on a raised platform, as has been the case with previous popes. So I think this does pay testament to the type of character that Pope Francis was. Whilst others who have been before him have opted for an elaborate funeral service, which has been seen at the Vatican and witnessed by lots of people, Pope Francis very much wants his funeral to be a less elaborate affair, and he wants to be close to people in death as he was in life, speaking out to people who were impoverished, looking out for the poor in society. We have heard many addresses from Pope Francis where he has expressed concern for those who are struggling, and certainly his funeral plans seem to reflect the fact that he does not want this to be an elaborate occasion.
OK, Sam, for now, thank you for that. The very latest there from our London newsroom. As we've discussed, so many tributes already coming into us from all over the world. This from the Archbishop of York this morning, saying Pope Francis was acutely aware of the divisions between our churches, how they stand in the way of seeing Jesus Christ more fully. I remember the powerful work the Pope did with them and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and the moderator of the Church of Scotland in promoting peace building around the world. He was a listening Pope whose commitment to the principle and process will be a permanent legacy to the Roman Catholic Church.
That news that we're bringing you this morning announcing the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. And that is it from Breakfast for today. We're back from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning.
But coverage continues.